Hi guys. Okay, so I got an email from someone asking me how to go about building a website and what programming language you should use. So I'm going to just give my opinion on what I think you should learn when building a website. So let me start first by saying that there are basically two types of websites. There are what you call static page websites and dynamic page websites. A static page website really means that it is coded um, beforehand. So for example, you would have to learn how to code in HTML. So a normal HTML web page, single file HTML web page would be considered a static page, a static website, as opposed to a dynamic page website or dynamic website. So let me kind of let me try to explain this by explaining what a dynamic website is. So a dynamic website is a website in which um, code runs in the background to generate a unique page or a page um, that is customized to a specific user, for example. So nowadays, a lot of people create, dynamic pages. For example, things like Amazon website, or eBay, or you name it, they are generally dynamic websites because it is altered automatically with programming in the background to a page. It generates a page that is suitable to you as opposed to suitable to someone else. So it's dynamic. Um, I would suggest when starting to build websites, it depends on your what you want, what is your goal. If you're learning to become one of the best web designers out there, I think that you should start with static pages. And the reason I say start with static pages is because it makes it simpler in the start. You learn the basic language, which is basically HTML and CSS, cascading style sheets, and essentially work your way up. This will allow you to understand how a basic page is coded and and then displayed to your end user. And then from there, you can then learn other languages like dynamic languages, uh, languages that will create dynamic websites. For example, once you understand the HTML and the CSS, you can then put that into a dynamic language that generates code on the fly for you. In that way, you would create a dynamic website. So, one of the most popular languages out there on the internet is PHP. A lot of people use PHP because it is supported by most um, operating systems, especially Linux operating systems and web servers out there. It is open source, and there's a lot of content out there for you to be able to access. So you could just Google some PHP code, and most likely someone has probably done it already. So you could probably do this, as I said, the PHP. Now, another popular language that a lot of people use if they don't use PHP is generally ASP.NET. So PHP is more for Linux, and ASP.NET is is Windows based. It's basically like either VB.NET or it's a Microsoft solution. Um, in that regard, there are also different sorts of frameworks. Now, PHP and ASP.NET are not the only two languages that you can code in. You can also code in languages such as Perl. Very rarely I see Python, but you can use Python for coding web pages as well. So I would I would stick with the PHP or the ASP.NET. I would even want to push it further and say PHP. And going into that regard, I started that way. I learned HTML and then CSS. Then I learned Perl, actually, strangely enough. Well, back then it was Perl. And then I switched over to PHP after that. You can also use Java too, but as I said, I used the PHP and that suited me fine. There are a lot of frameworks out there for PHP, which makes it a little bit easy to create websites. And there are also content management systems that allow you to basically install some PHP scripts and basically create pages without having to do too much HTML coding and stuff in the background. Now, something I forgot to mention is that most of the most of the dynamic websites that are driven today require a database. So I also learned SQL, which is something that you should probably also look into as well, because SQL will make you go a long way in the sense that it basically allows you to, it is the language used to retrieve and access the SQL databases. I would recommend MySQL because it's open source. There are different forks to MySQL. There's Pacona and there's also Maria the DB, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Um, those three, sorry, databases will allow you to start to get going. Um, Other than that, you should probably also work on Photoshop skills, because building a website requires some level of imagery, or some level of web design as well too. So Photoshop might be a good option for you there as well to create images and whatnot. So I hope that this tutorial, but not tutorial, but this YouTube video gives you a better idea on the direction you should probably take when learning how to build websites. Thank you, and please subscribe to my channel. Bye bye.